suit against Lackay for a submission he made to Parliament in 2015. In his submission, Lackay had alleged that Moyane willfully misled the country and Parliament. He also denied the existence of a rogue investigation unit with a secret account that spied on taxpayers. This put him at loggerheads with Moyane, who suspended a number of prominent officials for their alleged involvement with the unit. We cross live now to our Pretoria studios and talk to Mr. Lackay. Mr. Lackay, are you feeling vindicated this morning?
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be on this program. More relieved than vindicated. It's been a tough 3 years or so on my family especially. So I've had wonderful support from my former SARS colleagues, from an excellent legal team. And I'm glad that this matter could come to the conclusion that it did.
Do you know what the reasons for the withdrawal are? Have those been advanced to you?
No reasons were provided. I can only assume that some measure of sanity and common sense and rationality returned to SARS under the current acting commissioner, Mr. Mark Kingan. Basically to say that the litigation certainly in my view, is absolutely frivolous and vexatious, as the lawyers would say. It has no legal merits. And I'm sure SARS took a view that it will no longer fund litigation by Moyane in his personal capacity against me at the expense of public funds and taxpayers' money. I'm sure SARS also realized under the current acting commissioner, it has far more important priorities and duties to fulfill in collecting the revenue that the fiscus actually needs. We are still in an environment of low economic growth.
Yeah.
We have seen successive years of under-collection by SARS under Moyane. So those are more important priorities, I would imagine, for SARS than to still continue a frivolous litigation against me.
You say it's been a really tough time. Just take us back to 2015 when you made those submissions to Parliament. You know, I look at a few inquiries that have taken place. What comes to mind right now is the SABC inquiry, where health officials were found to be negligent, and the chair of the inquiry, Advocate Dikgang Moseneke, the Deputy Chief Justice, was saying to professionals that you might have had instruction from your superiors to carry out certain instructions, but you are a professional yourself. You could have used, you could have thought about processes and things to do and not to do. Take us back to 2015 and Adrian Lackay deciding that I'm going to tell Parliament what's going on in spite of what might happen to my person and my career.
In my mind, those two committees in Parliament, the Standing Committee on Finance and the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, their role in the legislature is to perform an oversight function over a state institution like SARS. And what had become very apparent by March 2015 when I wrote to them was that many wrong things are happening at SARS. I explained to the committees in a long letter that since Moyane was appointed in September 2014, there was a disinformation campaign being driven from within SARS about an alleged rogue unit that supposedly spied on the former President Zuma, that ran a brothel with employing the services of prostitutes, and a whole list of allegations of alleged illegal activities that took place. And based on the strength of these headlines and allegations, the SARS Executive Committee was suspended within 6 weeks after Moyane joined SARS. He started disciplinary processes, suspending people. I cautioned the committees that number one, the rogue unit stuff is absolute nonsense. It has absolutely no truth to it, and I refute it. And if you allow this kind of instability to beset a very well-functioning revenue and customs administration, it will have longer-term consequences. I anticipated in 2015 that some of the best skills and expertise would leave, and ultimately that the problems of revenue collection would become a problem for our fiscus if you miss your revenue targets. Unfortunately, many of what we predicted back in 2015 came true. Many of the best people have left the institution over the past 3 years, and we've seen the impact on revenue collection on the one hand, but also on tax compliance on the other hand.
It takes me back to the question I asked you when we started, if you were vindicated, because you're saying yourself the rogue unit didn't exist, which has created quite a lot of debate, because even last week, a witness testifying at the SARS Commission, a judge who had said that the rogue unit existed, has now come back to say, to testify at the inquiry and say the rogue unit did not exist. What are the facts about the existence and non-existence of this unit?
I think many processes, many investigative processes were clearly manipulated to create a particular outcome, or what we call the narrative. This rogue unit story had to stick because on the basis of those allegations, the most senior officials in SARS were suspended, and ultimately some of them faced criminal charges. And that was the disinformation campaign that I could clearly see being advanced from within SARS. Need to create this instability in a professionally and effectively functioning institution. None of us understood at the time. I think in 2018 we now understand that an independent institution doing its work independently may have become an obstacle to those who wanted to pursue corruption and state capture in some of our most critical institutions. And when you are confronted with injustices of that nature, I mean, if in my view, I couldn't keep quiet, and I refused to be silenced, and I refused to be intimidated when this 12 million defamation claim was served upon me. Because at some point, justice must prevail.
This is an important story, but we are in a day where we have multiple breaking stories, and we're going to ask you to please stay with us. We will come back to you, but right now we're going